Hello and welcome back to the CPO Strategy Podcast. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Venkatesh Srinivasan. He is a supply chain and operations executive with over 18 years of experience at growth-oriented technology companies. His diverse experience covers automotive, consumer hardware, climate tech, and semiconductors. In this episode, he will be discussing the current state of play in the supply chain in the midst of seismic evolution and transformation. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to the CPO Strategy Podcast.
Hi, Venkatesh. Welcome to the CPO Strategy Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm very well. How about you, Sean?
Very good, thank you. All fine here. As a way of introducing yourself, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you and your career journey leading up to where you are today, if that's okay.
Firstly, I want to start off by thanking you and CPO Strategy for having me here. So, a little bit about myself. I'm a Bay Area supply chain executive. I've been in the field of supply chain over 18 years. So, I'm an engineer by training, but supply chain is the only thing that I've done, right? So, I started in as a supply quality engineer, and then I moved on to different facets of supply chain, moving from quality engineering to supply management to supplier operations. And currently, I am the VP of supply chain at a San Francisco-based startup called Diamond Foundry.
Lovely. And for you, what was it really about supply chain that fascinated you to begin with? Were you one of those people that sort of fell into it by accident, or did you always know that this was going to be the place for you?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So, as I mentioned earlier, I was by my training is in engineering, and my training is in industrial engineering, which quite naturally lends itself to different manufacturing processes and understanding them and dealing with them. And right out of graduate school here in the US, I had an opportunity to work for a company called Cummins, and in their supply chain division, specifically in supply quality. And what was appealing to me about that was supply chains is naturally a very outward looking role. It's connected to the real economy. But also on the inside of the company, you get to collaborate with a large number of teams, whether it is design engineering, factory operations, sales and planning, legal. So it's a good mix of technical, commercial aspects of the business, and it's also quite central. Supply chain as such is quite central to advancing the goals of the company. It's quite operations adjacent, if not a direct part of operations. So a combination of all of that, was very exciting. There's never a dull moment in this function. So all of that was really appealing for me to start off my journey in supply chain.
Lovely. Thank you for that. And I guess with that in mind, how have you witnessed it transform throughout the years? Because there's been so much sort of innovation, isn't there? And all of this sort of technology drive that we're seeing at the moment. How have you sort of, I guess, in your words, how would you sum it up the past sort of 10, 20 years?
20 years is a long time. I started my journey in supply chain in late 2000s, right around the global, the financial crisis. Right, that was when I started my career, and since then, I think the world has moved a lot. One thing I would say is remained constant is, as a reflection over the last 20 years, I would say we are well and truly into what modern theorists call a VUCA world. It's the world's very volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, and all of that and all at once, right? So I think what we've just as a reflection, what used to be different back then through now is globalization, in late 2000 was was on the way, but now it feels well and truly entrenched. The reliance on overseas market, particularly Asia, is much more now. It was much less back in the day. um, and all of that is again getting disrupted via tariffs, right? So that is something we have to contend with. um, Time to market, back in the day the pace was more gentler, it felt like. Now it's the time to market is very little. So the time taken to introduce new products has shrunk dramatically, which means that you need to act more rapidly. Communication methods have changed completely. I remember being on conference calls with suppliers overseas or even within the country, and now it's all replaced by WhatsApp texts and things of that nature. Um, I would say that we are running virtual factories now. We still do a lot of supply visits, but with the support of a lot of sensors and automation, we're doing a lot of virtual factory work, sitting here in California and running factories, anywhere in the world, right? Um, and then I would say maybe access to market has changed enormously. Back in the day, e-commerce was still in pretty nascent, and
Really?
it's now a very dominant part of the economy. In China, you could say it's 60-70%, and in US, probably it's over 50%. So I think a lot of disruptions have come through, but I think the constant is that supply chain is field where things change constantly. You have to adapt, and you have to do your best to keep up with it.
Yeah, and it's as you said there about the VUCA world that we're living in. The volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. Um, on that, just to sort of press you on that a little bit more, how are you sort of dealing with all of this? Because it feels like, anyway, so certainly in the last sort of 5, 6, 7 years, that there's always been a black swan event. There's always something happening. Is has that always been the case, or does it just feel like there's more of these events that are happening? I'm talking about obviously COVID. I'm talking about sort of the wars that we're having. I'm talking about inflation and tariffs and everything else. Does it has there always been this many sort of problems in supply chain, or is this sort of a relatively new thing?
At some level, supply chain and the world we're dealing with is just a reflection of the world we are in today, right? It's a function of our times, if you will. And um, and uh, uh, on reflection, the last 20 odd years, maybe even 25 years, seem very rapid and seem tumultuous. Um, because if you've, I mean, just look at this decade, right? We are going through these tariff challenges currently, last year and this year. Right before that, there was COVID, which disrupted not just supply chains but also markets. Demand and supply both got disrupted. We're also dealing with AI, which means supply of important electronic components is constrained, um, which is the same case with COVID. Um, you rewind back, into 2016, 2018, that time frame. There was the first wave of tariffs that hit. Even before that, if you go to 2007, the global economic crisis hit, and because of that, a lot of factories shut down because there was a capital crunch, and a lot of industries got remade, right? So even though the crises, the deep recession happened in 2007, we were dealing with the second order effects well into maybe 2012, 2013, 2014, right? So and even before that, yeah, and you would notice that there was a dot-com crisis and other economic crises earlier than that, in earlier 2000. So this is a cycle. Maybe we witnessed a lot of expansion, through 19 maybe 70s through 1990s, but last 20 years certainly seem to be more unpredictable, right? Now, I think you mentioned, Sean, about how we're preparing for this world. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
I, uh, I think, I think by and large, I would say that uh, it's very easy to get lost in, geopolitics, macroeconomics, monetary policy. These are kind of the headline items that you would witness on a Bloomberg or a CNBC day in day out, right? and it's quite easy to get swept up in it. But from a practitioner's perspective, I think it's very important to stay close to the stated goal that you have and the stated goal of the
Mm.
company, right? And I think so long as one stays close to the core values and plans very well, which means serving the customers and consumers first, building a product that they like and enjoy, building a supply chain that's built around making that product available to the consumer with the right SKU, with the right cost, the right quality, and right time. Building supply chain that enable those uh, items, and then on top of that, being prepared for it, right? Um, which really means figuring out what the edge cases in your supply chain may be, what the disruptions may be, and having a plan of action well in advance of that. I think a combination of, if you do a combination of all those things, uh, I would imagine that anyone would be in a pretty good position. Now, macroeconomic factors, global economic factors will continue to persist, but those factors don't pay your bills, right? Those are not the factors that make the company the money. But so long as one is focused and not distracted, focus on the key things and not distracted from other factors, uh, I think that should stand somebody good.
For sure, yeah, and to sort of bolt onto that conversation about the things that are happening in supply chain at the moment, in terms of the biggest challenges and the hurdles sort of that you have to overcome to get through them. What would you say are the biggest challenges today in supply chain? What are you facing and dealing with that you maybe think, oh well, that's something that we really need to solve, and how do we do that? What would you say?
Firstly, challenges are opportunities in disguise, right? So I think anyone who meets the challenges well, and it's a door for new opportunities ahead of you. But having said that, I think a few things that come top of mind for me are, I mean, clearly over the last 18 months or so, we have lived the tariff challenges, right? Which is the global economic order reset and the trade reset. And that's going to persist. So I think companies have got to get used to having, localize the supply chain in the region of operations. For example, if your market that you're serving is global, that means, say, it's spread between Europe and Asia and in Americas. It's better served to have supply chain as localized as possible and as close as possible to the ultimate consumer. That's one way of looking at it. I think it's very important to invest in new capacities, especially in these geographies that you will have to build out. It's not always easy, but finding suppliers and maybe even insourcing at some point is essential to ensure that you insulate it from these external shocks. I think AI is another big one. I don't particularly look at AI as a challenge, but I think um, avoiding AI and not doing anything about it would be a challenge over time. So I think it's important to quadruple up um, on all things AI, all things digital, all things associated with data gathering, so that you're able to meet the challenges more strongly.
Yeah, and AI, as you just mentioned there, that's it's becoming so important, isn't it? You can't sort of live without it, really, can you? I guess, in your opinion, how is it sort of shaking up the industry? And you've got things like agentic AI now as well, which is relatively new in the past sort of year or two, isn't it? As well, for you, sort of, how is it sort of changing the game in supply chain and procurement as well?
Yeah, I mean, AI is going to disrupt every aspect of business. Um, Probably going to give you maybe a couple of examples where I've worked with companies as advisors where I see them disrupting supply chain in some way. So I think first things first is AI as a way of automating work streams and streamlining the work that needs to be done in supply chain and purchasing. I think that's gaining a lot of momentum. Um, it allows us. There are a lot of companies out there that train on the local data that any organization may have. It may be email, it may be chat conversations, and so on and so forth. So what they're able to do is accumulate all of that data, make sense of it in real time, and project it onto the dashboards to help you organize your workday, right? I
Mm.
was recently talking to one of the founders of a startup over here, a Trucko, who do exceptionally well in this area where they streamline and automate workflows. So that's kind of one way of where AI is a phenomenal aid in improving the efficiency of supply chain, right? So it fast tracks things. I think beyond that, I think where AI meets manufacturing, it's quite honestly a game changer. Um,
Mm.
Another example that I have is a startup that I'm advising. It came out of the Y Combinator incubator, and it's a real life use case. What they do is that they use AI powered insights for manufacturing floors. So they have a platform that connects directly to machines, and they process data to monitor production, uncover any latent issues before they become costly problems. Essentially, they're optimizing their factory operations across different dimensions. Think in terms of yield, think in terms of throughput, production cost, SPC, that's statistical process control. And this company is already connected over 100 stations. They've analyzed data for over a million units now. It's kind of mind-boggling to think about that, given AI is just kind of taking steam now. But they've already done that, and the company goes by the name of Autumn Labs, and they are also located here in the Bay Area. So um, this is just an example of what AI can do uh, uh, for individual companies and industries at large. So I think the bottom line is that we are well and truly into the AI era, and it's going to have a long term impact.
Yeah, because as you mentioned there, those 2 companies in particular, particularly, in San Francisco Bay Area, there's so much sort of, tech transformation happening, and it's here, and it's I guess the bottom line of it really is it's not going anywhere. So you need to sort of get comfortable with it, you need to embrace it, because I guess in your view, what would you say the biggest problems are down the track if you don't sort of embrace it? Left behind, presumably.
I think the competition is just going to be due to the market, right? I think eventually I look at AI as a enormous productivity tool, uh, which allows us to uh, make decisions, right decisions, make decisions faster, point us in the right direction, whether it is supplier search or inventory management, material planning, and all sort of things, right? So, in absence of embracing AI, is going to translate into that particular company not having the cost advantages, speed advantages, the quality advantages that the competitors would have, the ones that are using AI. So I think if it's quite simple as thinking of adoption of PCs back in early 90s and Excel sheets, back in that time frame, right?
Mhm.
Uh, Eventually, I mean, it was clearly inevitable that you have to choose those technologies, and in not choosing technologies would it's a short way of obsoleting yourself, right? Um, so uh, so yeah, I don't think there's much of a choice here.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. The real winners are the ones that are already embracing it, leveraging it, and using it at scale, aren't they? For you, I guess with the next sort of point, which is about the skills of the next generation of leader. What do they need to have? Is it a case of being agile? Is it a case of sort of being ready to respond to all of these things, having a finger on the pulse? What would you say the big skills are for the next generation of supply chain leaders?
Yeah, and I'm going to answer that. So I'm going to juxtapose that, the greater theme of AI here. But I heard somebody say, a thought leader say recently that the response to AI is not to be more like a machine, not to be like a robo, but to be more human, right?
Mhm.
And that's the way we distinguish ourselves versus the machine, right? And I think that there is something over there to pick up on, right? So uh, if I really look at what are the traits of great leadership going forward, what are the great skill sets that someone needs to have, right? I would I would reinforce the skills which are always very important for supply chain, or for that matter any leadership position, right? Uh, you have to be, number one, curious um, about the work that you're doing, the world in which you live. You got to leverage data. Data is going to be omnipresent, but how do you make sense of that data? I think that's important. Um, it's exceptionally important to build relationships, uh, even more so today than earlier. I think it's important to have these strong human relationship and a strong network. Um, we still got to do the a lot of the obvious supply chain things that you got used to. You have to be used to traveling, be on site with suppliers, see where the real work is happening, um, uh, and visit customers, get their insights, and learn from them in real time, right? So, I think a combination of using data to gain insights, and building human relationships uh, is going to be even more important. It's already important, but it's going to be even more important in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And I think to sort of push on the theme of AI, in terms of the talent of the future, what does that really mean in terms of sort of upskilling? Because there's been so much sort of concern, hasn't there, from all walks of industries, in terms of how much will that take away people's jobs and the like. Where do you think that sort of the next generation of supply chain or the workforce, that where they can really get value from AI, in the sense of, although they're those jobs at the sort of the bottom data entry jobs may well be taken up, well then how important is it that they are given sort of the necessary skills in order to sort of get above that and still progress? So for you, where would you say sort of the next generation of talent really need to sort of thrive in order to sort of get past that blockade of data entry tasks being taken up with AI?
I think AI clearly is going to take away the tech overload that uh, or overhang in some way, right? So, as a say as a new person coming into the coming out of college and joining the workforce, um, you earlier would have been at a disadvantage if you did not have computer programming skills or coding skills, and those sort of skills, right? I think those were key. But going forward, you really don't need those skills anymore, right? Many of your tasks can be automated. Uh, there's so many codings, kind of AI has taken up basic level coding already. So there is really not as much need of that. I mean, you need to be technically literate, but you don't need to be an expert in that. And what that does is that it opens up the dimension where you can go deeper into the things that you're experts at, right? So, for example, a chemical engineer doesn't need to necessarily know much about coding, and they can be exceptional at chemical engineering, right? And so the concept flows for each domain, right? Where people can be domain experts. They don't have to be a digital expert, and AI will take care of that. So I think it's probably going reversing back to the median, uh, you know, back to the days in '90s or early 2000s. Since then, I think there's been a lot of computer science focus. I think it's now reverting back to the mean, but you don't need to be that. you can do well by just knowing your pure sciences, be comfortable in your pure sciences background, or pure mathematics, or whatever background that you come from, right? So I think it's going to be just people are going to be more empowered to lean in more into their domains, where they excel at.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess with everything that we've discussed today in mind, is this the most exciting time to be in supply chain and procurement at the moment, in your opinion? Or is it the most challenging time? Or maybe is it a bit of both?
It's a bit of both, right? Uh, Opportunities come out of challenges. I mentioned that before. Um, it is There's never a dull moment, and I've said this to myself over and over for the last last 6, 7, 10 years now, right? Um, I think the world's changing faster than maybe the world's changing faster than capacities are getting formed, right? So it is an opportunity, uh, and you got to make the best of it. It is certainly exciting. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you very much for appearing on the CPO Strategy podcast today, Venkatesh.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the CPO Strategy Podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, make sure that you subscribe or like our social media pages so that you never miss an episode. I'll see you next time.